and this is how to record ambient guitar. In today's episode, I'd like to show you some of the techniques I use to build multi-layered ambient guitar pieces. So let's get to work. The piece that I'm using as an example today has an interesting history. It's the last track on my album Layers, and it's called The Hard Road. It started out as a 2-layer piece back in 2020. I recorded a rhythmic finger-picked part that you see here on the screen, and I'm using my PRS baritone guitar, and I'm using a Strymon Dig to create a rhythmic delay pattern. Let's listen to just a few seconds of it. And the second part that kind of lies underneath that plucked rhythmic part is an EBO Frippertronics layer. And I'm using the Strymon Volante delay pedal to create a Frippertronics style loop delay. You could use the El Capistan. I also use the TC Electronic Flashback Triple Delay, any number of pedals, but I'm using the Volante to get that long, swelling, decaying, looping kind of thing. So anyhow, I put those 2 layers together and posted it as a YouTube video in March of 2020. Well, a couple years roll by, and then as I was putting together Layers, the album, I thought about the piece. I thought, I like that piece a lot, but it needs something else. So I decided to create some more layers for the piece. So let me go ahead and flip over to Logic Pro and walk you through the layers and how I put together the entire piece. As you can see, I've got queued up here the guitar track. And oh, by the way, if you're not using Logic Pro, no worries. You can just simply take the concepts that I'm using and transfer them over to your software. Anyway, here's the core guitar piece. And I'll just play a second, right? You've already heard it. And it pretty much is the performance. As you can see, there's only a little cut in the audio at the beginning, but the rest is just me playing straight on through. And that's how I create a lot of my ambient guitar pieces, the core part of the piece. It's just me sitting down and performing all the way through whatever the core track in the overall song is going to be. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the Frippertronics track. Again, it's me using the Volante delay pedal to create these layered loops. And one of the things that I do a lot, especially with Frippertronics layers, is I don't always listen to the original piece. So that is definitely the case when I recorded this part. I was not listening to the guitar part. I was just playing this independently and started creating layers, right? And just kind of built them up until I got the basic bed here of what I was looking for, and then was able to add in the guitar part in Logic, which I had already recorded. Now, it's not like it was totally random. I did know the key, obviously, of the original guitar part, so I made sure that the layers kind of went in a direction that would complement the key signature of the original guitar part. Now, that gets me to the point where I posted the original video in March of 2020. When I came around into 2023 and was putting the Layers album together, as I mentioned, I wanted to add a couple of other parts. And I knew that one part I wanted to think about was a bass line. I just wanted something that sat underneath the guitar and the Frippertronics and created a little low end. So to that end, I grabbed a Pigments synthesizer plugin, which I really, really like. And I just kind of Typically with pigments, it's a fairly complex synth, at least for me it is. So I typically go through the presets and find one that is close to what I'm looking for, and then I modify it to suit whatever the piece is. So as you can see, I've got a synth bass preset pulled up that is slightly modified. And here's what it sounds like. There we go. It's a pretty straightforward kind of synth bass, right? And the thing is, I'm only playing one note all the way through the entire piece. So it really is just there to add a little bit of low-end texture. So let me go ahead and start the guitar here with the bass, and then I'll let the bass drop out. And you'll hear, make sure you're wearing headphones or you won't be able to hear it. You'll hear a little bit of change. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drop out the bass. Here we go. It's subtle, but you lose that low end, right? And a lot of times in creating these arrangements, it's really helpful to have a subtle low end. The next thing I was looking for was some rhythm, because I'm playing a fairly rhythmic kind of part. This is not a bunch of volume swells like I often do. You know, I'm slapping the guitar every now and then and things like that. So I thought, well, maybe I need some drums. So the issue was, well, for me it's not an issue, but the situation was that I played the piece without a click track. I just played. The only thing I was listening to was the dotted eighth rhythm of the Strymon dig. So one of the cool things about Logic is that you can have it analyze a track and then set the project tempo to suit the track. So that's what I did. And as you can see here, this first line where, it says tempo here, you can actually see that the tempo changes slightly throughout the piece because I'm not a robot. I'm just a fallible human that, kind of plays as I feel it. Now, if I add in the metronome, you'll hear it follow along. And if you look up at the top here, you'll see the tempo actually changing between about 96 and 99 beats per minute, about. All right, so that got me where I needed to be in terms of the configuration of Logic. Now I needed a drum part, and as I am wont to do, I used the Logic Drummer, which is a really great, I really like the Logic Drummer for the types of pieces I do. For me, drums are always secondary. Apologies to the drummers out there, but they're always secondary to the overall piece. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they're kind of buried in the mix, and I just have them there for a pulse. This is a little bit more, but it's pretty mellow. So I used the Logic, the Logic Drummer to create these drum pieces. And here's what it sounds like. Let me go ahead and solo. There we go. And as you can hear, there's very few drums being used. I knocked out the cymbals. I knocked out pretty much almost everything, right? And it's just the kick and the toms in a pulsing rhythm. All right. And one of the cool things that you can do with these drummer parts is set the drummer parts to follow a particular track. So I actually set them to follow the guitar. And here's what the guitar and the drums sound like together. Yeah, pretty cool. It's just following along with my slight variations in tempo. And then I was able to create different parts with different types of fills. I can raise the intensity of the drumming or lower it down, whatever I wanted to in the overall context of the song, until I get to the end. And I decided to go ahead and drop the drums out early so that everything kind of dies away except for the initial guitar part. All right, so let me go ahead and bring everything into the mix so you can hear all four pieces together. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense in terms of how to think about expanding out your ambient guitar piece into multiple layers, into multiple tracks, into a full arrangement of your piece. The next step is to do a mix down and balance out the volume levels, the panning, the equalization, the compression, the stereo imaging, putting all of that together to turn these four parts into one cohesive piece. That's what I'm going to cover on the next session, the next episode of How to Record Ambient Guitar. So I will see you over there, and let's keep this thing going.